This podcast is brought to you by Primary Arms. Primary Arms seeks to provide the best shopping experience for everything firearms. With over 13,000 products from over 400 top brands, Primary Arms carries a complete selection of rifles, handguns, firearms parts, shooting gear, apparel, and more. Every order comes with a commitment to superior service, backed by fast shipping and an expert support team. Primary Arms, serving freedom since 2008. Find out more at frn.deals/PA. Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This show is for you if you just bought your first rifle or if you've been building them for years. There is something we can all do to take our black rifles to the next level. My name is Nick Dooley, and I am joined as always by my co-host, Tyler Brockle.
How's it going, everybody?
Yep, and then we also have two very special guests with us this week. We have Dave and Kai from HUXWRX.
It's good to be here.
All right. Yep, thanks so much for coming on. Tyler, did you do anything interesting this week?
Oh, man. Lots of stuff going on. Last week, I was actually out in Sturgis, South Dakota with doing a carbine course with Haley Strategic. They had a 3-day course out there in the hills, and that was an absolute blast. Learned a lot. I got my $800 worth right away the first day. It's crazy how you take for granted how little you know sometimes. So I had tweaks to my shooting stance. I even got some bonus pistol grip modifications out of it, and it was a really good time. So I am definitely going to do more of those in the future. I know, like 88 Tactical down in Omaha, Nebraska has a lot of resident courses that are only a couple hours from us up here. So I might try and do that a little bit more. And then in addition to just the training, I picked up a new toy. That is a real HK SP5. And I haven't shot it yet. I'm still waiting for, I got a Midwest Industries handguard coming. Got an EOTech on it right now, and yeah, I'm gonna throw trying to figure out maybe I'll have to throw a OSS or a HUXWRX suppressor on this bad boy. But yeah, picked this up this week. Have yet to shoot it, so I'm excited to get out and test out what a real HK SP5 can do.
Well, that is awesome. The only thing I did was I went on last week. They on the 15th, Talking Lead released the episode, and they had the AR versus AK episode again. And that episode turned into they had 3 primarily AK users and me. And even though it's called the AK Corner, well, you'll have to go find it, listen, and see how that turned out. There was a ton of good knowledge about both weapon systems dropped on there. I didn't even have to make fun of their not being able to get barrel concentricity and, all of those things going with it.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed it.
So, Dave, did you guys do anything fun other than normal work stuff? Or
Go ahead, Kai.
I was just going to say, I'm just outdoors guy in general. So, shooting, climbing, biking, any of that stuff. So, fortunately, I'm not so, fortunate to go and do some of those trainings, but that's definitely on my list someday.
Yeah, I'm hopelessly addicted to climbing and skiing and mountain biking. It's hard not to do those things when you live so close to the mountains here in Salt Lake.
Well,
yeah, you guys are very lucky to be in Utah. It is very, very flat here in South Dakota where we're at. Yeah. So the only thing we can do is motorcycles, power sports, and guns. We have to buy our entertainment.
Yeah, we have that here too. So it's really all the above.
Yeah, and I can say that I have spent not a considerable amount of time in Utah, but enough to sample all 4 seasons within a month. And
or even a day sometimes.
Yeah. And it was right there, like 45 minutes from the Salt Lake airport. I spent a month or so there, and all I learned was about at the time it was Devastator beer, the high alcohol content beer that had just been released.
Oh,
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, I met the guy who brewed it.
what was the percentage?
Like 12.
Not bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was for Army schools, so it was a
Needed.
normal interesting trip. But before we go any further down the rabbit holes of things to do around Salt Lake City and Camp Williams,
Hmm.
we can get into HUXWRX. So Dave and Kai are here from HUXWRX, as we already said. And, well, guys, for people who don't know what HUXWRX is, or maybe who HUXWRX was formerly known as or anything like that, does anybody want to jump into a little bit of an explanation?
Yeah, Dave, I think you got that one then pretty well.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's formerly operator suppressor systems and OSS suppressors. And last January at SHOT Show, we rebranded to HUXWRX Safety Co. So we've got new management in the business, and they've really done a lot of work to kind of restructure the business and fill out all the different departments, and give them the resources to do what they need to do and take it to the next level moving forward. So I've been around since 2008, since the very first iteration of the very first design. Back then I was independent design contractor who, the original inventor, his shop was right around the corner from an industrial design studio who would subcontract me to do design work. So that's kind of how they found me to start on, the very first flow through designs, which kind of were inspired and came out of, some tier one operators who were in the company who had, shot everything under the sun, and, they didn't like inhaling and being hit in the face by high velocity, copper and carbon monoxide and lead. And
Cleans out your sinuses, though.
I know, right? You get that burning, the ammonia in your eyeballs.
Generally, I
Yeah.
normally have a half Braveheart.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole inspiration, really, this foundation stems from wanting to mitigate that and, not cause any additional back pressure or inducing malfunctions into your system. Basically not affecting the gun, you're not changing the way it was designed to run unsuppressed. So you don't have to worry about adjusting gas systems, putting adjustable bolt carriers or changing your springs, your buffer weights. I mean, it ends up taking a lot of time and money to try to get the gun to cycle properly, which can solve your timing issues, but doesn't necessarily solve the issue of back pressure because you're not doing anything to the size of your bore line. That gas still wants to go the path of least resistance, which is right back down the bore.
Yep. So in the past, as a lot of our listeners have before heard me talk about things, and I don't always mean to talk about it as a bad thing, even though what the name of it is has a negative connotation, because when I say that most factory rifles especially come from the factory overgassed.
Right.
And they,
especially AKs.
Yeah.
And Mark 18s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mark 18s are definitely overgassed, but
Yeah.
the reason why a lot of manufacturers overgas their rifles is so that they will function with any ammo. So when you buy that, cheap Tula or Wolf ammo because you go, man, ammo's expensive right now and steel case is looking kind of appealing, it'll run with that, or it'll still run with Black Hills. So having, the discrepancies in ammo without tuning a gun specifically to ammo, typically they would, increase the back pressure to make sure it worked no matter what. And anytime you add a silencer into that, or a traditional silencer with like a K-baffle or something like that, it would build back pressure in that blast chamber and force more gas and carbon and everything back into the direct impingement system and then out by your face.
Yeah, it's quite unpleasant. You can really feel the difference for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. I actually spent that weekend I was at Haley Strategic. I went suppressed, and I've been waiting on my piston barrel for my AR for a while now because I'm looking for a certain one, and
mhm.
I had to I had it out on the first day, and I'm just like, man, I shouldn't do 3 days straight of breathing this stuff, and so I ended up not putting my suppressor on until the last day because 3 days of that stuff would have been a lot.
Yeah, and we're putting a lot of focus into what those negative effects are. Not only immediate effects, what you're not being able to get a good sight picture because your eyes are burning, but also the short term effects after you're done shooting, how it affects your body, as well as your long term effects
Oh yeah.
that it can have on soldiers that train a lot, or anyone that trains a lot. Um, what that can do to you. And there's some new um, testing methodologies around that have recently been released that we test to in house for contract verification. And there's requirements coming out around that, specifically stating that it needs to be a forward venting
Mhm.
flow through, which is copyrighted by us. We pioneered it. Um, Often quoted, but easier
Yeah.
said than done.
What's that?
Um,
Often imitated but never duplicated.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the best way of putting it.
yeah.
So I guess I was watching one of the videos on the NGSW system and
Mhm.
like all the new 6.8x51 round stuff that's coming out for the U.S. Army.
Mhm.
Were you guys in the running for any of those contracts, or did you put in for any of those contracts?
We did. We have a solution for it,
Mm-hmm.
but there's only so much I can talk about.
Yep, fair enough.
Fair enough. Yep, fair enough.
I know how those things go.
Yeah, I can certainly
So
talk about current product line, and that we are very Kai and I are very hard at work on developing lots of different new systems right now.
so you've said something that we've talked about a lot with this, and that's flow through. And then obviously I alluded to earlier something other than a standard, what I call a K baffle, which since as the weird gun history nerd, when Maxim came out with the first silencers, he's also the same guy that made car mufflers, and it
Mhm.
was the original patent called silencers a gun muffler, or
Yeah.
it was in the actual patent writings. That's what it said. Was it was a
Yeah.
muffler for fire or
I
muffler
think he
for
sold
fire.
it in hardware stores as a muffler too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some cool ads you can see of the old advertisements at hardware stores, and they're pretty cool looking, eh?
Yep. But that's one of those where, and how that worked was they had, a typical silencer has what is known as a blast chamber, where after it's attached to the muzzle, it'll have a larger volume chamber, typically, not always, that will collect the gases, and then it slows down the expansion of those gases by passing through a series of baffles. In the same way that like water passing through something gets slowed down by putting plates that restrict the flow and have fluid dynamics and air moving and all of that stuff happens, and then magic things, and it gets quieter, and then you know that's everybody goes, oh hey, that was way more pleasant, because it also works like a compensator and a muzzle brake and reduces recoil and just is a 100 times better shooting experience to run suppressed, except for that nasty gas in the face.
Agreed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So with my bit of history nerd stuff out of the way, what makes the flow through different than a traditional silencer?
Well, I think Kai can talk to the fluid dynamics part of it, but the way I like to think about it is similar to what you said. It's like a traditional baffle suppressor. It's like dams on a river that trap all of that water and energy, and it has nowhere to go but back down your barrel into your gas system, fouling up your trigger group, your operating system, coming out the ejection port into your face. and it can cause all sorts of issues with, cycling reliability. It gets a lot hotter, a lot faster. Where ours is more like a passive or tuned spillway on a dam, so that it can never get flooded up the river. So any overpressure, no matter the ammo, the operating system, it allows it to operate the way it was designed to operate, without a gas adjustment or modifications.
Yeah, like I'm a big car guy, and the way that I think about it is it's like a wastegate. If you guys are, car guys yourselves. So when that pressure is building inside that can, we give it somewhere to go, and we let it slow down on its way out, so it's not coming out loud and with a lot of force. But yeah, it's basically like a wastegate on the end of your suppressor there, allowing that flowing through, slowing down.
Yep, I heard somebody once describe it as like a jet engine in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As someone who has spent a lot of time on the end of a runway where like I know exactly how loud an F-16 is at 60 feet. It's if it does the opposite, that makes it more gooder.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I like to think of it as well as that we don't like trap the gas and the energy. We control it and release it out the front, away from the shooter.
So it's a little, like, not to say this the right way, but it's a gentler or less violent way of containing the air, because anytime you have that, it's a Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if you just control it and move everything rather than doing a hard stop, it doesn't do things like pop.
Right. Yeah, we've done a lot of work to eliminate dead ends in the system to that end.
So essentially, you're just venting out the front in multiple holes in addition to the bore, right? Because looking at your stuff online, yeah. So really, I guess maybe this might be way oversimplifying it, but essentially, once your stuff gets into your initial blast chamber, it expands through various, call them veins. I don't know, what would you call them instead of K-baffles?
Coils.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you still have some of your gases exiting the bore, but the majority of them are coming out multiple holes around the outer diameter on the front of the suppressor. So
if you watch our flow through video that shows a cutaway, we've got essentially like a bore line chamber with non-traditional deflectors, we call them.
Okay.
Maximizing the efficiency of getting that gas off of the bore line, and then we allow the gases to be split off into what we call the housing gases, and the bore line and the housing gases are kept separate through the entire system. So everything coming out of those vents is kept separate from the bore line gases.
Interesting.
Okay, so that would be why, so as I've stated before, when I've just talked about suppressors in general to people, generally a suppressor always makes the perfect target crown, because as the reason why crowns are incredibly important on rifles and pistols is as it comes out, the way gases work when they come out of any compressed space is they naturally expand, and then having it a completely uniformed and planned way for them to expand, it allows for it to continue, because there's that little bit of what I call free bore boost as it goes through a can that would push the bullet and move things around, where you could still have impacts on accuracy. So crowns were important to making things very, very accurate. Now yours, where you're splitting those gases off and venting them out, that's working on your actual suppressors like a compensator or muzzle device, because you're using those gases that are already coming and kind of pushing the rifle in a certain way to keep it steady, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so we typically see, how do I not get into too many trade secrets? But
yeah, I was like, I'll let Dave answer this one. Tricky one.
I'll say this: typically with our suppressors, you'll see your groups tighten up for a number of reasons.
Yep. So that's just one of those where, again, I delve down weird rabbit holes because of how my brain works.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You'll see more accuracy with our Canon once it's zeroed with the suppressor, essentially.
But like
Yep.
you said, the word
Right.
planned, I feel like that's a good way to describe it. We're planning the way that those gases are interacting with the bullet, the shock wave, everything behind it, so it comes out in a more consistent manner.
all right.
I'm watching, I'm watching your I don't know what you want to call it, your simulation CAD model here on your safety tab on HUXWRX.com /safety. I mean, that is an awesome depiction and description of how this thing works. And I really wish we could. That's the drawbacks of a podcast. You can't necessarily show everybody what you're looking at, but essentially it's comparing a K baffle suppressor to their coil suppressor, where a K baffle, you essentially have dead spots, and it causes that's what causes the back pressure, and of course they're depicting that the expanding gases, because they can't exit the suppressor fast enough, are actually traveling back down the barrel, and that's where all that stuff that's getting in your face and getting into your chamber is coming from. And the coil system that they have, just the gases are constantly moving forward and exiting at the front, and so it makes a lot of sense when you look at it. And I highly recommend anybody who wants to check it out. It's HUXWRX, HUXWRX.com /safety.
And anyone watching now, they can see. I pulled it up and have it on the screen, so it's playing through, so they can come back even if they wanted to. Obviously go to the website, but for people watching live now, you can see it. And Tyler did a really good job of explaining how it kind of demonstrates the difference on how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing too with this one, you're not seeing a lot of blowback through the muzzle brake, right? Because like I currently have a 10.5-inch AR. I'm gripping the gun pretty far forward on my handguard, and I'll tell you, after the 3-day training that I just did, my left index finger was just completely black from the suppressor that I have. Does your system eliminate that or reduce it?
It'll essentially, your system will run the same way it does unsuppressed.
Yeah.
Okay, right on.
And we found it to be pretty universal across barrel lengths, calibers, ammos, operating systems.
Well,
Very cool.
that is incredibly cool. And speaking of cool, as you look at this, like again when we were talking about on the demonstration there, you could see what I assumed was the gases going through and going from red to kind of yellow. So this doesn't get as hot, correct? Or am I wrong? Like it still gets hot because
it'll still get hot.
Yeah,
it takes twice the number of rounds to get the same temperature as your traditional baffle can.
Yep,
It'll still get hot, but
yeah, I was gonna say
with like subsonics, doesn't really get hot that fast anyway. It's just mileage varies, but yeah.
Like with the baffle cans, and they hold on to the gas, it allows that gas to transfer its heat out. And so when we're allowing it to flow through and out of the can, the heat's not going to really soak into the material as much.
Yeah, that can have a lot of benefits.
Do you guys still recommend suppressor covers then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys sell any of your own?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet. Just asking. I'm nerding out on the website right now, so I'm kind of poking through everything.
No, but we are looking to expand the product line into other safety related areas. I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Yep, and so with that can staying cooler, especially, or taking more, not staying cooler or needing more shots to get hot. How about we say it like that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That could have some real benefits to PRS shooters or people doing the extreme long range, because you won't throw as much mirage off of your suppressor or like whole gas system.
Yeah, we saw that with what the SDMR Army program suppressor, which is essentially our HXQD 762 suppressor. that's available both in stainless and titanium, is that, they wanted to, maximize, their ability to, stay on target and see that target, without mirage affecting their sight picture. So yeah, mirage and contact burn is also, a big issue that we see. When you're transferring, going from rifle to pistol, drop that down on your leg or your buddy's leg. Nobody's happy.
There's a meme that goes around, and it's, let's do a work on transitions. That suppressor isn't that hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have forgotten one time and put it in my bag, and this is before I learned real quick to buy suppressor covers, because I burned a hole right through my damn bag because it was nylon.
Yeah, I did that the first time I shot a suppressor too. So I think everyone goes through that at some point.
We were also out at a demo out at Front Sight, and this other guy, they had all the guns sitting out on plastic tables, one of those plastic folding tables, and the guy put it down right on the table and walked away for about 3 seconds before he realized what he just did and melted half the table to the damn suppressor.
Oh.
Yep, mine was a foam rifle case.
Oh yeah,
this should be good.
Yeah, that's why I always cringe a little bit when I see people posting, like, tucking suppressors under rails, especially, high pressure supersonic systems. It's like,
for that
you're going to burn yourself. You're going to figure out that was a bad idea pretty quick, like 1 or 2 mags.
But it looks so cool with the SD look on Call of Duty.
Just do it on subsonics. You're good.
So, we've talked a little bit about, and we've got into the some of the cans and stuff like that. Let's keep going on, with what we have, because obviously you'll get into your line, and you have rifle cans, pistol cans, rimfire cans, and so I'll start with rimfire cans just because, 22 is cheap. And
ish.
Ish, if you can find it. It's still cheaper to buy 522 rounds than it is to buy 556 at the moment. But so are your cans all user serviceable?
I'll let you take that, Kai.
Well, so directly on the 22 cans, yes, you can take them out, they undo the cap and the base, and you can take them out, you can clean them. Which is, 22 cans get dirty real quick. So yeah, you can take those apart, scrape them clean, soak them, do any of those kind of cleaning methods, and then put it back together. Yeah, so the 22 cans are user serviceable.
And the other ones are not, then, from what I'm gathering?
The rifle cans, we have the top welded together, so it's not serviceable in the fact you can't take it apart. But you can soak it in a CLP or any sort of other solvent, and then drain it. And the next time you go shooting, you shoot it, and it blows the carbon out. So it is cleanable, but you don't take it apart to clean the rifle cans.
Yep. So how about like an ultrasonic cleaner?
Yeah, we use those a lot in our cleaning as well. It's a good method. Ultrasonic will break some more stuff loose quicker, so it's a good method.
A company that will not be named, that used to be located in a state like right to the north of you, that got bought by Big Blue, would say you voided warranties if you would ultrasonic clean their cans.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
With the materials we use and the coatings we have, it's not an issue. And the extra heat and the ultrasonic waves can help break it up a little bit.
Yeah, I love an ultrasonic cleaner because, I'm lazy.
Oh, yeah.
And
we even use we use a tumbler for our 9 and 45 and our 22 cans in house, with some like steel pin media in the tumbler.
Okay.
Works awesome for the baffles.
Yeah, makes them look new again.
I would call it the wet media for reloading. The stainless steel media.
It's a reloading tumbler.
Yeah,
it's great. That, or a wire wheel if you got one.
I mean, I have one of those as well. So, when we get through, obviously, you have the rimfire cans, the pistol cans. Now, I have a question on pistol cans that is, you know, I know we're the AR podcast, but as you go through and look at the pictures, and when people think about a 9mm can, they don't think about putting it on a PCC.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks about putting it on a handgun.
Mhm.
And I take it you guys still need, a Nielsen device, or how, I don't forget what the term de jour is, to have that for the piston,
Yeah.
stopping that from running.
Yeah.
So our 9 and 45 suppressors, they ship with the Nielsen device to run on reciprocating barrel systems. But we also have 3-lug and direct thread adapters for those fixed barrel PCCs as well. And our 9 and 45s are modular, so you can run them in the long or the short configuration, depending on what you're after. And they're rated up to 300 blackout subs, 350 legend.
350 legend.
Yeah, 45 you can run 10mm full auto. Yeah.
Well, 10mm is best millimeter.
Yeah.
And I see that we actually have one of our listeners was talking in the chat here, and I put the screen up, and he has 2 of the OSS, HUX in suppressor jail right now, and he was worried about something that I had never heard of, that the titanium cans produce more flash.
That might stem from pretty much, I think, all of our competitors' titanium cans are 100% titanium, where ours actually still have a stainless bore line in them because of the way we stack all of our components. The actual deflectors are stainless, so it really mitigates that sparking and flashing issue that traditional
Some other
tie cans have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Titanium will react pretty fast when it's hit with debris, and that's usually what you're seeing, is it reacting, sending sparks, material out, burning. And so, yeah, like you said, with our bore line is still stainless, so you don't get that direct exposure to all the particulate flying through the bore line.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Yeah, flash is really driven, I think, more so on barrel length and the ammo you're using. A little bit of rate of fire in there, but the ammo makes a huge difference.
Yeah, again, that comes down to shooting something that burns correctly,
Yes.
especially in whatever length barrel you have, and it's
Right.
not, it's not one Bubba's Pissin' Hot reloads that you picked up at the gun show.
Right, or the white
Yeah.
box
Yeah.
stuff
Oh,
versus match ammo
yeah,
that has actual flash retardant in it. So
yeah. So, but so that was just an interesting question that popped up in the chat, and since we were talking about it, and you had said that you have stainless and titanium cans.
Yeah.
I have a mixture of both in the cans that I personally own, and I think I've actually switched to I only have one titanium can left, and other than that, I've been doing just stainless because it's not as much of an issue for me for weight. Because
Mhm.
while I understand that, ounces make pounds and pounds make pain, it's
Right.
That's where sometimes the economy of a steel can wins out, because I'll just get stronger.
Right, yeah. If you're hiking it through the forest hunting, it's great. If
Yep.
animals aren't shooting back at you generally, so flash isn't an issue.
Yeah. And so we hit a little bit on the pistol cans with you have the 9 and the 45, and then what they can run up to, obviously, and these are all hearing safe. And full auto rated. I haven't seen one of your cans yet that is not full auto rated.
Yeah, that's what we go for, because a lot of our designs start their lives as military contract submission designs. So we're always trying to hit those objectives, which they have pretty harsh durability and endurance objectives. So yeah, our cans are built like tanks.
Yeah.
Well,
Right on.
Yeah, like our 22 can take full auto 5.7.
Yeah.
So
Well, now that is impressive, because that stuff is screaming.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't pop the mags off a P90. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's a nice feature.
Well, that is rather handy. So let's move into kind of the rifle can series because we've talked about how they work, and then obviously kind of where they came from. And you have, like, as you go through the website, like Tyler was earlier, there's extreme long range. There's a Magnum can, and
Mhm.
then a 7.62 and a 5.56 series.
Mhm.
What would you guys kind of call your flagship can?
I mean, our number one seller are 30 cal cans because you can run them on anything from, you know, anything center fire up to 300 Win Mag or 300 Norma. Those kind of, if you're going to buy one can, that's the one to get. That's the one we
Yep.
sell the most of. But like with law enforcement, they love the 5.56Ks because they're wearing ear pro and comms anyway, so they just wanted to shorten as light as possible.
Yeah, knock the edge off of it.
Yeah, fit in their squad car, etc.
So question there then. So if you buy a 30 cal can and you put it on your 5.56,
Yeah.
versus just a dedicated 5.56 can,
Mhm.
is there a difference in sound suppression with the slightly larger bore on a 5.56? Slightly larger bore of the can, sorry,
Yeah,
on a 5.56.
yeah. I mean, there again, there's so many variables with barrel length, operating system. Some guns we find are just inherently loud to start with,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as what the human ear can tell the difference between, you really won't be able to tell the difference because it's only about a two decibel difference.
Yeah, so very,
between the
very
two,
minimal.
typically. It depends on if you're running on a bolt action. That's kind of cheating because there's no, ejection port noise. It's all
Right.
way out in front of you, a 20+ inch barrel, as opposed to a 7-inch fire breathing dragon.
Yep.
Right in front of your face.
Yep. So I guess I have a question I didn't think about earlier when you were talking about that, because you mentioned port pop, and or as it's called, where that ejection port coming out, it has a little bit more noise because everything is coming out that ejection port, and you have
Yeah.
your brass coming out of it, and then still a little bit of gas from the system running. Uh,
Yeah.
Does this one of those that will, because people will hear this or say the term or read it on a forum,
Mhm.
and they'll say things like first round pop,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh yeah, the first round's louder than the rest. Well, one, that might be because now you're getting used to it, because the first thunderclap close to you is always the loudest.
Mhm.
You know, the first shot in a gunfight's the loudest, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
and that again can vary greatly on the caliber of the operating system, the ammo you're using, but that's mostly what we see in supersonic systems
Yep.
where you're burning the oxygen out of the suppressor. You might get a little bit more flash on that first round and a little more noise. But one of the things that our suppressors excel at is the at ear decibel reduction as opposed to the muzzle decibel reduction, which looking at contract requirements now, they all look at the ear numbers,
Yeah.
not so much at the muzzle anymore. Those are
Yeah.
long gone as far as requirements go.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, do you care at the person you're shooting at if they can hear you, or like it's like you're the shooter. You want to protect your own ears. You don't necessarily care at the
Yeah.
person you're shooting at.
Yeah. So if you look at like I don't know, like Pew Science's numbers that he posts, people tend to focus on the muzzle number or the overall rating and not necessarily look at the at ear number, where we're very balanced. We try to balance the amount of flow restriction in the suppressor so that we're both quiet at the ear and the muzzle, but even quieter at the ear than most.
Well, as someone who wears government sponsored hearing aids, I can talk about how very very much so I more prefer the at the ear qualifier than what's
Yeah.
not, because my left ear is pretty much gone. But
Right.
so That was just I had a couple questions about that because people always ask those questions, and I have routinely said, well, I don't think it's that big of an issue because first round pop, if you're shooting at deer, no one's going to notice and it's still going to be hearing safe. And it's just what I figured you guys might be able to speak slightly more eloquently than I can.
Yeah, like with the supersonic crack of the round, it's close to 140 as it is. So I always recommend, anything supersonic, just wear your pro.
Yeah,
it's save your hearing. You don't want tinnitus.
Yeah, you only gonna lose your hearing once.
Well, I have that military grade tinnitus, so
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
and so I do agree because even sometimes with a can, I will still like to throw plugs in or something like that because of some of the issues I've had where after you get tinnitus bad, it actually hurts more to have loud noises.
Yeah,
right.
And so you guys also make when I was talking about we'll go back to the product lineup here. You have the Magnum, which I'm assuming is the going through the 330 or the 338 calibers, where you can get into obviously the 338 Lapua and things like that, which are 338 Federal. There's a handful of other 338.
Yeah.
And then when you look at what's the difference between the Magnum and the ELR?
ELR being extended long range, by the way.
Yeah. So the ELR, let's see if I remember this. I always sometimes get these mixed up, but the ELR is meant for a bigger bore. So we just allow that. It's just they're essentially the same overall design, a little dimension difference. One's a little bit bigger, but really the biggest difference is the calibers that can get shot through it. The Magnum is 338 size, so anything that's 338 or smaller, you can shoot through that. And then with our ELR can, we can do up to 408?
Yep,
I believe
408, 375.
Okay, now that's
it's a 1.8 OD suppressor as opposed to 1.6 OD suppressor, so larger volume, a little bit longer.
Can tame a little bigger, round.
Yep. So I guess that was one thing we didn't talk about talking about volume, because as I kind of alluded to earlier, that blast chamber on a traditional K can has that volume for everything to go through, and then you had stuff spaced out as we talked about in the graphic earlier. With your flow through design, is volume as big of an issue because the air is continuously moving, or can you get them just a little bit in a smaller diameter than like a traditional K baffle can for the same amount of suppression?
Volume, we go over every thousandths of an inch, inside of these things, and try to proportion things appropriately. But I think it becomes even more important when you're looking at select fire and even belt fed systems, where you can pack out that volume and it just can't absorb anymore, that you want to look at going to a larger volume suppressor. It just has that much more mass as well, that it can absorb more energy. For those ELR guys, that's going to result in more rounds without mirage, etc.
Okay, that all makes perfect sense then, as you get into those things.
Yeah, the volume's always still a huge variable in helping it keep quiet. Like what you're asking about too, if our flow through helps with, it gives us kind of a more effective volume. But yes, volume is still an important variable in that, and so it's always a huge consideration that we're always looking at.
Yeah, if you look at the that cutaway on the video, it's those coils create like a longer path for that gas to have to travel, so it acts like a longer suppressor essentially. Yeah, it's staying in there longer.
Yep, the keeping the gases in longer, kind of, and having the veins and whatnot work to add volume without having, it's a different way of measuring volume in the same.
It acts effectively like it's a bigger volume, even though we're
Right.
not adding much, to that volume.
Or how is it I should phrase that? It's a more efficient use of the volume you have.
Yeah. It's one of our, critical patented issues is the serpentine path that gas has to travel in.
Okay, well that is a very understandable. Now let's talk about, because there are some people who listen to us that are in places that are not free, and you do make stuff for those guys as well, because you have some muzzle devices, and your muzzle devices are not your traditional, what I would call DNA samplers that have sharp pointy things on them and are made to look cool. Like these actually have forethought and things put into them as it looks, because like I'll pull one up on screen here. They have vanes and things coming off. They're not a standard muzzle brake or compensator.
Right.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So pretty much all you'll see from us right now is closed tying, flash hiders, brakes, comps. Because of our suppressor, the way it works, we've got to get a certain amount of gas off that bore line and into the housing area. But the banner that we're looking at right now is a hybrid brake and flash hider, and does both quite well. It's a lot like our deflector stack in the suppressor. Kind of acts like extra baffles almost.
Yep. Well, it's just as looking at it, if you would think of like a traditional 3 or 4 tine muzzle brake, or like what I would refer to as a vortex style, where it would kind of direct the flash hider to come out in a vortex around the end. It has a line of those mixed with obviously some vanes to help direct and slow down those gases to aid in recoil mitigation. And it's just a very interesting design, and it looks cool.
It does look very cool.
Yeah, has a very unique look to it.
It's got to work and look good.
Yeah.
But essentially, all of your muzzle brakes, what they're doing is they're allowing the gases to expand in all 360 degrees. It's not just redirecting everything up or redirecting everything out to the side. You want to, I'm assuming, dissipate that gas as much as you can the second it leaves the barrel. And so that it hits all of the vanes kind of more even, disperses amongst the vanes more evenly the second those gases hit the inside of the suppressor. So that's ultimately, I'm guessing, the design idea behind all of these brakes.
Yeah, definitely what we see with open tying, 3 and 4 prongs, is it just directs a jet of gas straight down the bore. Nothing goes off to the side.
Sure.
So it can erode your bore line much faster than the closed tying
it's
brake
basically
or flash hider.
Yeah, you're basically just directing a massive amount of gas just straight down at that first baffle, and it just eats it alive.
Interesting.
So
how long, like in suppressors like that, then how many rounds, again, in general? I get there's a lot of different variables, but like how many rounds do you kind of see from suppressors with that type of design where it's potentially eroding that first baffle a lot more?
Mileage varies greatly there again.
Yep.
Depending on how you drive it. But we've seen 5.56 cans, traditional baffle 5.56 suppressors turn into 50 cals in 1,500 rounds or less.
Oh, that's really fast. Wow.
Yeah. But we're running it, 12, 1,400 degrees, 30 round mags and surge cycles, essentially. Just eight 30 round magazines at a very high rate of fire.
Sure.
Like pretty much running everything at cyclic.
Yeah.
I wish everyone could just say and like show what they actually consider to be fully auto rated, because nobody really says what that actually is.
800 rounds, 1,000 rounds.
Yeah. We do multiple tests. We do those surge cycles, a minimum of 6 times, 8 30 round magazines, and with the objective being 20 cycles. And we also do a 300 round mag dump as fast as you can put through it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that will heat up a can fast.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like I have ran a can on a full auto lower before and then looked at it and went, "Whoo, that's already
Yeah.
hot," because you know
Yeah.
Yeah, we
when
get
you're
it, Cherry.
Yeah. We look at what, what our end users, what their combat loads are and what worst case scenario is.
yeah,
Make sure it's
and
going to work for them.
that is awesome that you think about them with that much durability in mind. And with that much durability in mind, it might not be as important to have the you know and kind of the way your system works is why you don't need to have as much of the user serviceability, because you're not having to clean or reorder stacks or things of that, because I know that in the past there were silencers that were user serviceable because you would move which baffle was going into the blast chamber, blast
Right.
baffle, as it got as it started to wear out, so you would
Yeah,
extend the longevity that way. And
Yeah, I mean, we definitely target like the whatever the objective service life is, and try to go beyond that. And in general, we typically say service life, is well beyond the life of the barrel, if not 2 or 3 barrels in their system.
yep, and that is really good. And it's, I know that some of the PRS guys who might be running the cans will junk a barrel after 1,500 rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I really hope the can lasts longer than that.
Yeah, and I've got archived test cans, that was like a 1 round a second type test that have over 15,000 rounds through them, and they look new inside, just because they never, on bolt actions or sniper systems, they just aren't getting that hot, and heats the enemy.
Yeah.
Of a suppressor.
Well, kind of the whole rifle in general, because that's when barrels heat up and start drooping and doing bad things. I mean, I have never ran a barrel to cherry red to white and watched it do a flop as it comes out.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
We've done that.
Too often.
Yeah, we've done that.
On belt feds. We're like, maybe we ought to stop. I can see the bullets going through the barrel.
Yeah.
Yep. So, is there anything else about HUXWRX? I do. We could talk about you guys kind of reintroduced your or rebranded. You said with new leadership last year at SHOT Show, and went from OSS to HUXWRX. And I've thought it was a very interesting way you changed the naming convention, and is kind of helpful to thinking about how silencers are branded in general, because you went from, hey, we are operator some or suppressor source or whatever. I'm murdering what it was before, but it's taking the name silencer or suppressor out of the name and calling it a safety company.
Right.
You are really showing that a silencer is gun safety equipment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it even says in the name, the HUXWRX actually stands for Human Exposure Workshop. So in that whole name, it basically gives like the whole purpose of our product. It is to mitigate the human exposure element of firing a gun. So both your hearing, your exposure to those gases we talked about earlier, those toxic gases, the lead, all that stuff. We're just trying to mitigate and make shooting as safe as possible. And a suppressor is a fantastic way of doing that. And so we're really trying to put that focus on a suppressor. And so it's
I've always thought of it as a piece of PPE, personal protective equipment, coming from the climbing equipment design world. It's PPE, it's hearing protection your firearm wears.
Yep. And I know that the arguments have been made before that there are certain countries that require you to have a silencer when you shoot.
I wish ours was one of them. That'd be great.
Yeah, I know.
And the NFA would just go away. That'd be great.
Yeah, and in England, it's the neighborly thing to do to shoot suppressed.
Yeah, it's uncivilized not to.
Yeah,
It's Well, yes, everyone, I would love for the NFA to go away. I'd just be happy if background checks came back as quick as I could run normal background checks on a,
Yeah.
as a NICS check. If I could get an NFA check
Great.
back the same.
Yeah, that'd be nice. It'd be good for us too. We would very appreciate that.
I'd like to sell them I'd like to sell them in hardware stores again.
Yeah.
Like as a muffler.
Yeah.
Yep. So, well, we've covered a lot of stuff. I know that we kind of went down the rabbit hole since we are two rather mechanically minded people on here tonight that got into things of, how it worked and getting into rather extreme specifics. We do really appreciate you guys coming on. Was there anything you guys wanted to bring up about the company or the products or stuff to look out for if you've got something cool coming up that you want our listenership to really be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, there again, I can't let too many cats out of too many bags, but Kai and I have been extremely busy. We've completely clogged up our testing guys. But yeah, keep a close eye on launches, in the coming weeks and months and at SHOT Show for sure.
I think SHOT Show would be a good time to check up on our company again for those listening. If you're curious as to what might be coming, SHOT Show is a good time.
Right. Well, we'll make sure we stop by.
Yeah, we will be there for SHOT Show this year. So,
oh yeah,
awesome.
We will definitely stop by and nerd out a little bit more because that's what I do. But
we'll be there to nerd out with you.
Well, that is great. Before we cut off tonight, we have to talk a little bit more. We have to talk about our friends over at Patriot Patch Company, patriotpatch.co. If you want morale patches, I say they make the best mouse pads in the world with their they're technically called a gun cleaning mat, but that's not really what they are. They are the world's best mouse pad because they will go your entire keyboard and then work like a as a mouse pad, and really you just can't beat them. So head over to Patriot Patch, patriotpatch.co. Check out morale patches. They have t-shirts, they have patches. They even make a lot of patches for other people. I know that Jake and the gang over there has looked through, and when you go to SHOT Show and start collecting patches from different places, he can pick out designs that he did or produced versus ones that he did not. And then, of course, the other one we have to talk about is VZ grips. One of the most unique features of VZ grips is that they are machined from a solid block of G10, which is great because it is durable and doesn't get slippery when it's wet, covered in mud, blood, or sweat. The 17-degree grip angle and wide variety of textures from mild to extreme, and colors options are available. 1911 grips that feature extreme customizability with standard slim palm wall swells. They have thumb notches, safety cuts, bottom profiles, etc. with 25 textures and 27 colors available. You can make something completely unique for yourself. The code for those is AR-15 podcast. And again, enter that at checkout at VZGrips, vzgrips.com. Now that we got through that other little bit of housekeeping stuff for us, where can everyone find HUXWRX?
HUXWRX.com. Even if you go to the old OSS.com, it'll redirect you there. But we're on, all social medias, you name it.
Just as HUXWRX on all of them, and that is HUXWRX.
Yep.
I was gonna say I had to look at the screen to make sure I got that right.
That's why I had to read it off earlier because I would have put an O in there. But yeah, glad I was looking too.
Appreciate it.
Yep. No problem. And again, we thank you guys so much for coming on here. Tyler, where can they find us at?
They can find us on YouTube, AR-15 podcast, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you guys want to shoot us questions directly, it's AR-15 podcast 2.0 at gmail.com.
Yep. And Instagram and YouTube are also 2.0. And other than that, it's just AR-15 podcast everywhere else. Find us on the Firearms Radio Network and firearmsradio.net. And you can find us and all the other great shows on the network there. And with that, anybody else have anything they'd like to add as any parting words?
Get out and shoot.
Yeah, that was great to be on here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes. Thank you guys very much for
inviting
coming.
us.
Yep, no problem. And you folks out there, you stay safe and stay armed.